getting ready, cause here I come. I never met a girl could make me feel the way that you do. You're alright. I guess you can tell I'm listening to Temptation music.
I met him in school over 35 years ago. And at that time, we were just mildly acquainted with each other. But I came to realize early that people from his section of the country, which was basically up north, up east, they had a different mindset than we here in the South had.
Can't you see I am exceedingly abundantly blessed? Take the time and look around. I think at heart, you're looking at a musician with much less.
That mindset of a musician trying to make it also as a leader just kind of helped me understand really how he thought. Because musicians sometimes get shoved in the background, and people tend to think, you know, you're just a musician, so just shut up and do what we tell you to do and play what we tell you to play. But he wasn't that kind of guy at all. Not at all.
It all starts with the foundation. Because of the grandmother, the grandfather that raised him, you know, all the people around him that told him, "Little Eddie, you can do it," you know, I believe that started it.
Say what a friend we have in Jesus.
When I met him, he was playing the organ at our church, doing a rehearsal, and I thought he was real cute. I thought he was very suave. He had a nice little swag.
I was a musician early in my years. I was consumed by it. I loved it. It was everything that I wanted to do. I wanted to make it my career. I wanted to make it my life. Playing keyboards, it took me out of myself. It was a place to be able to escape.
I was the youngest in the singing group. It was called Gospel Majestics. His group was all God's children. We all were like a family. We sung, we went places, we did things, and even we went parties and restaurants. We were all just like one big happy family. So he and I, we kind of stuck out a lot, and everyone knew that we were kind of like girlfriend, boyfriend at that time.
Morning when I wrote, I didn't have no doubt. We sang two different styles of music, more Edwin Hawkins kind of style, and they more like Shirley Caesar, the stomp down caravans kind of style, and that's how we saw each other.
It was my first date, my very first date when I was with him. From there, our relationship developed. Then we had wonderful encounters of singing in church, going places, doing wonderful things.
We'll go sweeping through the gates of the city.
He was always looked upon as being a premier musician because the choirs that he had at the church, you know, were always the best choirs around. In fact, I think at one time they performed at several large venues like Six Flags over Georgia, over Texas. So he's always had that gift. And that kind of helped open doors for him.
Oh, happy day. It never dawned on me at that particular time that I was going to be in full-time ministry. Although I had experienced what I call this calling from God when I was probably about 12 years old. I knew that. As a matter of fact, I went to a pastor and told him, God's called me to preach. And the pastor told me, go back and pray. I said, God's called me to preach. He said, go back and pray. I went back again, God's called me to preach. He said, go back and pray about it. And about that third time, even after, I said, forget this. I'm not, you know, you got to pray this much just to be able to do what you kind of think you're supposed to do. I'd do something else. But music brought me into the ministry because it's so close to one another. There's a scripture that says David, who was a musician, he danced before the Lord. So all of these things, the arts and God, are all so extremely close.
He's a great writer. And as a great writer, his songs get a chance to live on. Although he's pastoring, you know, and shepherding a lot of us, he still gets a chance to live his music.
Every time I sit at this keyboard, it's prayer. It becomes a quietness. It's telling God how grateful I am just to be able to live just one more day.
When he proposed to me, it was like the Officer and the Gentleman movie. I worked in the garment district in Ohio. I can't remember the city. And when he proposed to me, it was like him picking me up out of the garment district and taking me and swinging me off to Texas.
All because we do not care. I went to school in Dallas, Texas, went to school in Bishop College, which is now shut down. As soon as I expressed my call to ministry, my pastor at the time sent me to school and said, you got to get an education. You can't stand up in a pulpit and be stupid. That's the thing. You just can't do that. The people who are out there have the right to hear somebody stand before them who has honed their craft, who has disciplined themselves, who has educated themselves to the best of their ability. And that's where it started. So I wound up in school.
He was called to Bonham, Texas. They had a thing back in the day that when you called to the ministry that they would send the preachers into the country. So that's what they did. That's what happened. Country, they called them. So, and they told you, they said, you'll learn more if you're stuck in the country. You learn more faith and you learn more all of those wonderful things. We just had Angie. Just Angie was there. It was just us three. Us three, no more.
You're in the country, you're in your first church, and you feel this need to expand, this growth that had taken place on the inside. There was something else that needed to be said. I wanted to reach out to people beyond just where I was.
I went to Bonham to see where he was, and it was there that I actually met for the first time Saundra. Man, you talk about a live wire. That's what hey, very colorful, always fun to be around. And so it was like, it was like meeting family. Of course, she doesn't meet any strangers, so everybody in town knew her. Then on top of that, she had this golden hair, and that kind of made her stand out a little bit more. And so that plus her personality, it was just, it was just an immediate connection.
Yes, God is real. I actually read this scripture that talked about going south. And Abraham journeyed south. So of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I think the Lord wants me to move south. And, I look back at it now and I wonder, well, evidently the voice was real because I wound up going south. And so, but the thing is, you do need some money when you go places like that. If you're going to hear God, I think you do need some money. And so we tried to save the money. We were only making $75 a week at the church where we were, so we didn't have anything. So Saundra went to work. She went to work in a sweat factory. She was good. She sewed pockets on dresses. She had done that up north when that was one of her jobs. And she was so good at it, they paid her per pocket.
You have to understand something. On my end, I was very receptive to doing whatever he said. However it fit with our family. If we needed finances or money, I was open to work and help him and get whatever it was he wanted.
I did extra night duty working as a DJ. 12 o'clock midnight, I left and I got down there and I went on into the country station and I said, now coming up, we got Travis Tritt coming up on this thing, and let me read it well. And that's what it was. It was a country western station. And I was there from 12 to 6.
His idea to go toward broadcasting, was always very prevailing in his conversations. The next thing I knew, he was on the radio station there in Bonham. Actually, he had no experience that I knew of running a radio program. But because the station was so small, he had to learn real quickly how to push the buttons and flip the switches and actually run that radio station all by himself during the time he was there. It was just obvious that that was what he really had in mind as far as ministering and as far as helping people, was reaching a wide variety of people through that medium.
there was something else that needed to be said. I wanted to reach out to people beyond just where I was. That's what I did. It's what I believed. I really believed God sent me south. And I looked on the map, and the most southern city was actually Galveston. But I said, no, I'm not going down there to the water. I said, much I love the water, I'm not going out. I said, I'm going to the big city. That's Houston. And that's how we got here.
When Eddie Jr. came, it was like 4 years later, maybe 2 years later that Eddie Jr. came. But overall, if you really want to know the real scoop of it, it was difficult. At times it was difficult because you didn't know where you were going, you didn't know what you were doing. We did not have a lot of money at that time of the transition from Bonham to Houston. We did not have a lot of money. We just had just a certain source, enough to get us a place where we needed to live and keep us until we got a job.
We wound up with $500 in our pockets. We got $500. We had $500. We thought it was enough. We had rented a truck and everything. We paid for the truck. And so we had $500 cash. And we stayed in a little Motel 6 that night. We didn't know what humidity was because it was in the middle of the summer. And so we found out what humidity was in Houston because we was all sleeping in that one little same room.
That transition from having a house, family environment, food, and enough to starting all over again, it was a little taxing on the mind. It was a little taxing.
Finally found a place, took that $500. The rent was $450, and we paid rent on a place for 1 month, which means we had 30 days in order to find jobs. It wasn't about ministry at that time. It was about feeding children. It was about getting lights turned on, which I think sometimes people forget. They think they have a call from God means to live a certain way, but a call from God means to take care of what God has placed in your possession. So we had 30 days, $50, went to the grocery store with it, money gone.
Smile. Don't ever wear a frown.
The kids went to school right around the corner. Daycare and somebody, whatever. Saundra walked into that daycare and said, I need a job. And they said, okay. And they hired her right there on the spot. Her job was to take care of, I think it was between 25 to 50 kids. I don't think the rules were the way they're supposed to be at that time. Anyway, but she took care of a lot of kids. And they allowed, our kids to be able to come from school or whatever and to stay free because they had babies and stuff. And so that was good for us, made minimum wage. I later found a job selling office supplies on the telephone, pencils and paper clips. And I was the best pencil and paper clip salesman on the telephone. You wouldn't believe how many. I would sell cases of pencil and paper clips. I was good at it.
Whether it had been in corporate America, the church world, the music world, there would have been no doubt in my mind that wherever he would have landed, he was going to take whatever risk were necessary in order to succeed. It was a risk moving from Bonham to Houston, not knowing exactly what you're going to do, not knowing exactly how things were going to work out, not even knowing if the city of Houston itself would be receptive to the type of organization he would found. So that's risk.
A lot of times people might think that I just immediately went into ministry. Faith just took me right into ministry. But actually, it was a year between the time that I walked in the city of Houston and actually began our church. A full year. I was on Harwin. I'll never forget, in an industrial section of Harwin. I went to a strip center, and it was about 1,800 square feet. And the man, I said, do you mind renting this? He said, sure. He said, what do you want to use it for? I said, a church. He said, you got a church? I said, yeah. He said, how many members do you have? I said, I got members. And of course, there was nobody but me and my wife, 2 kids. And so he said, well, I tell you what, I don't know anything about your church. Don't necessarily trust your church. But I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna trust you. And he said, this is what's gonna cost a month. It'll cost about $1,000 a month. I'll never forget that. And I said, wow. So I had some people that I had known back home, and some people who even were here in Houston. We raised about $1,000. I paid $1,000, $500 deposit. And once again, I had 30 days in which to come up with the next $1,000, because I had a 2-year lease. So I had to build a church strong enough to be able to handle a $1,000 monthly lease payment.
When they settled on the building that they initially leased, not knowing whether or not from month to month there would be enough revenue to cover the expenses. So that's risk. So ever since I've known him, those 2 words define him. He's a risk taker.
Either you're gonna sink or you're gonna swim. Either you're gonna do it or you're not gonna do it. Either you believe that this thing has been placed inside of you to do, or you don't do it at all.
There are a few people in this world who talk about making things happen, and then there are other people who talk about it and they deliver. Pastor is one of those people who does that. He never gives up.
The name of the church would be Abundant Life Cathedral. It meant 3 things: abundant, overflowing life, cathedral, which meant the seat of power or power within. Didn't have any chairs, so I went to the Catholic church around the corner, and nobody else would give me any chairs. I went to about 5 or 6 different churches. They wouldn't loan me any chairs. So I went to the Catholic church around the corner, down the street, and they said, sure. And they loaned me some folding chairs. I think I found an old piece of wood. It looked like a pulpit. And I took some mirrors and I pasted these little mirror tiles on the front, make it look, like a glass pulpit. Found some old carpet that was used, cleaned it up, laid the carpet. Found some old pallets that truckers use, and I put the carpet around the pallets, made a stage. Went to one of the Home Depot places, got some of those little lights, clip-on lights spotlight light, clipped them on the top of the ceiling. So now I had lights to shine down on the pulpit. Hey, instant church, looked beautiful to me. I look back now, it was probably a total disaster, but people came. People came. It wasn't about how we looked. It was about the compassion, the love that you have for people. It was loving people who walked through that door, no matter what their situation was.
You don't get a good morning, type of minister and a good morning type of first lady. They're just cool. One of the things that impresses me so is that they're very real with the congregation. They dance in front of the congregation. Sister Saundra will start the Harlem Shuffle in a minute.
You were there, you were there. For me, you were there.
The second location was 9429 Harwin. For some reason, we can't get off of Harwin. And that's where all of our buildings have been. From that building, we were there for a couple of years, and something opened up, this Montessori school. The only problem is we only had like about 120, 130 people, and they tell you that building cost $2.5 million. You're saying, okay. But we were a little bit crazy, I think. We got the faith to do anything. Somehow we worked this thing out to where, listen, let us pay this much rent, and next 6 months we'll pay this much. Next 6 months we'll pay that much, until we finally get to the ability to pay the note, and then will you give us an option to buy? And they went for it.
I saw the church begin to grow, and then from there, not just the church, but a national organization began to take shape.
Our church always kept the vision strong. They wanted to make things happen. So it didn't matter how many people we did, whoever we had wanted to do whatever they had to do to make things happen. You're now looking at around this time, around 700, 800 people. I thought it was more like, 1,500. I think it might have been more than that. but church could only, seat 600 at a time. The church began to grow. We went on television. I've always loved the art of it and how it works. I grew up watching The Lone Ranger, all those kind of things. I guess early in my life there was live television, but I always knew there was a medium in which to communicate the gospel. But I had watched church television before, and I saw the way they preached and how they did it and everything. And I said, there has to be another way to do this, a different kind of way to do this. So I realized that we would do smaller sound bites instead of getting on there and preaching a long message. We shortened some of those things. We pioneered quickly and we'll be right back, and we would leave the message and go to other things because we realized that the attention span of America had shortened, and you weren't going to be able to hold somebody's thought process. And then anyway, you can't preach a whole message really on television.
Breaking the Spirit of Poverty is the series for everyone.
Well, there was a little sliver of time that was commercial time. And at that particular time, Sunday morning was called garbage time, which meant that commercials, nobody's watching church, they didn't believe. That was years ago. And they said the commercials were going for like $25 for 30 seconds at that particular time, which is totally unheard of now, unless other places. But that was on network television. That was local, but that was network television.
As television ministries start growing, we're totally involved. Understand we were like, people say, we were pioneers of what we did. Not too many people did what we did, come out of a Baptist background and then have a mega church. That was very rare. My speaking engagements was full. My calendar was full. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I was able to maintain it, able to do it.
At the time, there were challenges with their oldest child, health challenges. And so dealing with those health issues was very stressful.
You're looking around 1985, 86, I believe. And we discovered this tumor. We thought it was a muscle. We thought it was something that, maybe she strained it. She was athletic and in school and went to the doctor, MD Anderson Hospital. We discovered it was a rhabdomyosarcoma. And they worked with it, chemotherapy, radiation, all of that. We went through it. My wife, at that particular time, I have never seen the determination that was in her eyes.
I took a lot. I didn't know what else to do. My daughter was, we were in MD Anderson. I would have meetings in the boardroom while we're doing chemotherapy. I didn't know what else to do. Then when he had the car accident, when that happened, how can you say? There was a supernatural strength that came up across to be there for him and to do whatever it was for him. Mind you, you could not let just this ministry just fall down. I mean, somebody had to minister, somebody had to speak.
And in the middle of her taking Angela back and forth to the hospital, I was in a car accident, and car flipped over 3 times. Gas pouring out of the back. I actually thought I'd lost my life about then. I don't even remember too much about what was going on in my head at that time. At the same time, there's no one in this pulpit. And so the person who took it was Saundra. Then you have a woman who has to, at the same time, take care of a child that's going back and forth to this hospital. The stress and the strain that was on her, the only thing I could do was pray.
I think probably what it did more than anything else is it made them more sensitive to the hurts of people, because the times that I saw them at the hospital with Angela, I saw them walking the halls ministering to other families who had children in the cancer ward. So I know for Saundra, it just exploded in her a new sensitivity toward people who were hurting.
We didn't do it on our own merit. We did it with the Word of God, quoting scriptures, saying prayers, being very prayerful, being very in a place of fasting and praying, believing God for certain things in our lives. I was not doing it just out of my own strength. I was doing with what God says. That's all I had was God going through the hospitals, 2 hospitals at the same time.
There were moments that you go through. There are ups, there are downs, but when the highs are there, the highs are there. She got the chance to go to school, and when we weren't teaching her at home, she was in school. When she felt better, she would go to class. When she was off the chemotherapy, she would be right there. She had friends that loved her. I got the opportunity to take her to her junior high school prom. But at the age of 14, she passed away. I don't know how I felt. I think there was a numbness more than anything. You try to access your faith, and it's difficult to access it. You're not sure if it's there. But I know one thing, I was hurt. We both were extremely hurt. And you need time to heal. You need time to process. You need time to deal with what's happening inside of you. I think it changed something in me. I think it shifted something in me. It's something I always knew, but I knew that God is much bigger than always doing things that might be convenient for us. God is way beyond that. It changed something in me.
You lose something so dear, then something always blossoms. I think God has a very special way of making sure that you're not in it, that He's in it more so, that He has control of whatever it is that He's doing for your life and your destiny and your purpose.
It got to the point that I said, Saundra, let's go take a trip. Let's go. I had some pastors who just said, listen, you just take a trip and we'll take care of the pulpit. I got in the car and I started driving. I had to see big things because it was important to see things bigger than what we are. Saundra was there. My son was sitting in the back seat, and 10, 11, 12 years old, not fully knowing what's going on. So our family had to heal, so we just drove.
He had to get away and see something that was much bigger than himself. That whole trip, I think, helped expand his thinking about what could be. Then I think it also helped realize just how big God is, that He's bigger than, even though our situations may be big to us, He's much bigger than that. When they come back, the conversations that he had with mentors and friends, I think helped him realize that even going through this with Angela, it's still somehow, as weird as it may sound, prepared you to take the next step.
I get to Houston, and I still don't preach that Sunday because I didn't want to go back. I really didn't want. I couldn't go back into that church building. I don't know what happened. But then I was at a conference or something was going on in the city, and it was a man by the name of Bishop John Mears. He told me, he said, come show me your church. I said, oh, well, it's just a church. I mean, he said, come show me your church. I said, well, okay. I said, well, let's make an appointment. He said, no, get in the car, let's go. It was the first time I had been in that place where I had preached since I had left. And I began to show him what was around. He walked around. Then we went upstairs to that second floor, looked out of a window, and he says, look out there. And I looked, and there was nothing out there but dirt. And he says, I see a building. He said, I see another sanctuary that you're going to build. He said, I see that building that you're going to own. He said, I see a parking lot out there. And he said, the kingdom of God are all the dreams, all the things that you can imagine, all the potential that is within you. When it comes out, that is the kingdom of God spreading. He says, you have to see it. And the more I looked, the more I was able to see.
I believe because they have been touched by a lot of human things in their own families, that gives them the sympathy, the empathy, all of those things to really shepherd a flock that's needy right now. I mean, you know, look at what's happening in the world. There's so many things happening in the world. And your first lady and your pastor have to be able to be touched with what's going on in the community, and they are.
When you lose a child or you lose a family member, and you continue to move on, what is keeping you going? So that's when the ministry really took a great fulfillment. It just got big.
I think from that particular point in time, things were consistently growing. I don't think we ever had what you would call growth by leaps and bounds. It was always a consistent growth. Sometimes up, sometimes down, but it was always a consistent growth.
I was born November 4th, 1988, distinctively about 9 or 10 months after my sister passed. Growing up, I always claimed my dad to be Superman. Doing the impossible is something that he instilled in me as a young kid, that everything is possible. Whatever you want to do, all you have to do is put your mind to it, work hard at it, and you can achieve. He always told me, growing up, never do just enough to get by. I'm very proud of him. It's something that I know that he's taught me, and to see him do it himself, you know, practice what you preach.
I don't think in terms of impossible. I believe that if there's something that's on your mind that you really, really want to do, you go after it. And it may take you time to do it, but you do it. If it's a potential that's inside of you, then you go after it. You try it. When you're dealing with that whole word of failure, hopelessness, no faith, impossibilities, this is not going to happen, a recession is taking everything that we have, you better hold on. You know, after a while, people begin to live like that. They live believing that nothing good is ever going to happen for me or to me. But more than anything, I think what it all boils down to is the loss of dreams, the ability to dream again, the ability to imagine, the ability to take an idea and to make that idea a reality in your life. I think when we walk in our doors and we see our families, we have dreams for our children. We have dreams for their future. This is going to be the Broadway Theater.
Okay.
It's going to be called the Star Theater.
And that's what the amphitheater used to be?
This is where that amphitheater is. That's,
Okay.
it's right here. So it's going to have a little marquee that's going to come out that's going to look like a Broadway theater. Angela may not have been able to see her dream, whether it was to sing or whether to be a professional dancer or be an artist or just teach school. She may not have not got the opportunity to do it, but through her life and from that springboard of who she is, and I say who she is because I always believe life continues on, we can make sure that other children can reach their potential and achieve the dreams that they have in their hearts.
Angela actually preached her first sermon in that building because it was always her desire to go toward ministry. To walk back in that building and see that it had been transformed into a place where her spirit was just captured. It just kind of took me back.
She was very smart. She knew what she wanted to do, and she knew where she wanted to go. And, you know, being in a family of people that are into the arts wasn't that far-fetched of an idea. So to have a building in her name, to have things of arts and dance and all that great stuff, to see people in there working and enjoying themselves and pursuing their dreams inside of that building, I guess it hits home a little bit.
This room right here is not complete. There's a bunch of junk around here. But ultimately, this is going to be the dance studio. This whole floor is going to be wood. Huge mirrors going to be across that entire wall. Bar, football, Pilates, and all that kind of stuff is going to be done in here. Okay. Ballroom dancing is going to be taught in this place. Okay. So we'll be dealing with weight issues and fixing all that stuff up. So if you can tell, we got a lot more work to do, but it's not going to take us long to do it. She loved to do anything that had to do with the creation and the imagination. I think that's where Angela's building came from. As a matter of fact, I know it is. It's about the ability to dream and to see that dream become reality.
But once they get it all walled in and everything, it's going to be the design that's going to hit the walls that's going to make the difference. The whole artwork that's going to be on the walls.
One of the things that I love about what Pastor did with Angela's building and all of her visions of, you know, praise dancing and theater and everything in the church is that he kept it moving. You know, anybody after dealing with that for such a long time could really say, you know what, God, I'm tired. But it almost seems as though it gave him more motivation and more energy to make sure that there would be a place for the young people of Abundant Life Cathedral and of the surrounding neighborhood who could actually see in themselves, say, a designer, a theater arts major, a dancer on Broadway. They could actually see themselves doing that, and the training that they get. Now, this is the most impeccable thing about it, is that the training that they get is not subpar. The training they get is wonderful.
This is what Angela's building is about. It is about starting to put things back in place. And one of the first things, phase one, is the Potential Center. And in the Potential Center, we will allow children to go from one event to another event, one idea to another idea.
They're going to teach the dance companies. This is where the resident dance company, this is where they're going to practice. The babies are going to practice. We're even going to be doing ballroom dancing in there. Fitball, Pilates, all that kind of stuff is going to go in. So
that's the spirit that's in this place. It is about building the stars of the future. We can discover what's in a child early, then that parent can focus on it. They can feed it, they can nurture it. Dreams are what I believe that God places inside of us at a very young age. I believe from birth. I believe we are given those dreams for a reason. We daydream about things. We see things. We imagine things. But we never act upon them because we're told we're too old. You know, we're from the wrong side of the track. We're the wrong skin color. We're the wrong background. But these dreams, that's what we do. We try to speak to them. I believe that speaking to dreams lifts and builds and reinforces those dreams to where finally somebody decides, I'm going to act on this thing. I don't care if you're 5, 50, or 150, if we can ever live that long. I believe that you always do everything you can while you can.
In my thinking, and probably in the thinking of those that were a part of our peer group back during the time we met, to think of where he started and where he is now, that was literally an impossibility. To start out in such a small town with such meager possessions and to see what he's accomplished now, it just didn't happen. But he's always lived in such a way that, again, when you take risks, you have to be the kind of person that believes that even though others say it's impossible and it can't happen, you believe that it's possible and that it can happen.
I was driving down in this shopping center area and happened to look up and I saw Dance with the Stars. And so of course I'm, a fan of the show and everything. So I just said, wow, I'm gonna try this. I'm totally uncoordinated. I mean, for 30 years. My wife tells me, you can't dance, you're uncoordinated, you stumbled. I just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. So I decided to come here and learn how to dance. Don't ask me why. I probably should have took painting or something, especially since I started finding out just what it takes to do this. It's not as easy as it looks. I have a great appreciation for everybody that dances. I no longer say, oh, that looks easy, but I was determined to do something that I considered to be, for me, impossible. This is my impossible challenge.
Is a body language, is also culture, is also discipline, is also developing skills how to act in a social environment, is also your mood. You know, some people, after they come to the studio and the door is closed after them, they're in a total different world. We're trying to make sure that we're helping them to discover a new world. We're helping them to live another life that, you know, keeps them away of some negative moments that, of course, we have a lot in our everyday life.
I never knew that he had flavor. I always thought that he had 2 left feet. And seeing him dance is crazy in itself, but at the same time, he's learning how to do all these different foreign dances, and it's like, wow, like, that's pretty impressive. He's the type of person that never gives up. He always wants to be the best at what he does. Or he also wants to get better every single time he does something. So to be able to take something that he's never done before professionally, go into it and learn about it and research up on it and practice, it tells me he has precision.
I tease him. I tease him. I said, you cannot keep a beat. So he had to prove me wrong and participate in this new wave of his life. And I call ballroom dancing, and I think that he is doing a fantastic job. He's doing a great job. I didn't think that he was going to keep it up, but he's keeping it up, and I'm liking it.
I think he's doing extremely well, and we discover many interesting points that we can develop more about his dancing, and we're going to compete soon. We're going to have 4 different dances. I'm very confident about. I'm not afraid to go on the floor with him. I know it's going to be good. I know he's going to handle well, and I wish him all the best.
I'm getting ready for this competition. You can probably tell that I think I'm nervous. I'm not sure. You know, I can go out on a pulpit and do this and be in front of thousands of people, but it's a whole different experience. It's now this is a real competition. Now in front of other people who are judging you, who are looking at every move that you're making. It's not just something you preach. Now you turn around and you do it. I do it in ministry, but now to do it in something that I've never done before. I've never danced in my life. I've always told myself that I couldn't do it. I always said I couldn't do it. So now I look back months later, I'm here.
You're talking about a leader who propels you to the impossible. First of all, with your thinking, because that's where everything starts. Then he propels you with your doing, because you have to put the wisdom and the knowledge together with the doing. And I think that's what he's done in his dancing, especially with that gotta go get it spirit. You know, he has it. He's a born leader. So it's easy for him to say, man, although it seems impossible, this is possible.
It took a lot of work. I've been going 3 days a week, 2-3 hours per rehearsal. Being a leader, I'm always in charge. So you put yourself in somebody else's hands and say, now you be in charge and I'm gonna follow. So it puts you in that position to remind you that gift of leadership is something very special, something very precious. When God gives it to you, I believe it's, especially as a minister, you have to be very careful what you do and how you do things, because you have people that are connected to you. So I had to put my life and my body and motions and feelings in the hands of somebody else, the hands of my teacher.
Yeah, make sure you're not gonna count, because sometimes we go on the floor and go, cha-cha, 1, 2, 3. You know, make sure you're not counting.
So don't let them see my lips.
Just smile.
Just smile.
And look at me, because you're gonna always find answers in my eyes. I will always tell you what you need to do.
He calls and says, I'm going to enroll in this dance school. Okay, well, I'm thinking dance, you know, a few swing out lessons, you know, a little cha-cha, you know, just regular. And then when he tells me I got this dance competition, again, I'm thinking, okay, you know, yeah, right. So when I actually see the footage of the of the competition, I'm thinking, this is Dancing with the Stars kind of stuff. And so at that point, I was shocked.
I think if there's anything I've been reminded of, it's the fact that you can believe that all things are possible, but it takes work. You've got to get in there and do some work. You've got to put in the time, you've got to put in the energy. But if you put in the time, you put in the energy, then your faith kicks in. Put your faith in the work, do the work, and the results are going to come. That's what it means to achieve the impossible.
This is so exciting. Dr. Montgomery is doing this ballroom dancing competition, and we're up here looking at, he's going to be in the pre-bronze international cha-cha, pre-bronze international samba, rumba, jive, and it's going to be exciting to see him do this. So we have our cheering section. This is our table over here. We have our cheering section. We're so excited for him being here and what he's about to do. He's very nervous. He's very nervous, but I think he's going to do a good job. It doesn't matter if he wins or not. It's just that we want to see what he's going to do. As long as he get one of those ribbons, that'll be real great.
Yeah, it's getting down to game time here.
Edward, you next. You ready?
Yeah.
Remember, if we mistake, nothing gonna happen. We're just gonna begin again and we're gonna smile. And this is the most important. Okay? Smile, yes.
First of all, it's like I'm bronze. I'm like pre-bronze. Pre-bronze means that, you know, I'm like in kindergarten. So from there, they judge you on your points. They watch what you're doing. So you're actually kind of like dancing against yourself. Even though there are other people on the floor, they're watching. There's certain things inside of the bronze level that you have to accomplish, certain little steps that you have to do. So all I'm gonna do is just do what she tells me to do and just let it happen.
Talk music, please.
Down by the pond, sitting by herself.
I gotta do the cha-cha twice, rumba twice, samba twice, the jive twice. Then there's and these is only a minute and 30 seconds between each dance. 90 seconds between each dance, if that much. Then they'll give me about a 30-minute break. Then I'll go in what is called multi-level or something like that. And then I do all of those dances again, but now I'm into another level of competition with another group of people.
How is Ed doing in this competition?
Well, he's doing wonderful. Edward is, I don't know, he's learning so fast. I'm so enjoying to work with him. It's just amazing. He's so rhythmical. He's so special the way he's sitting. You know, it's so easy sometimes to explain. I'm lucky.
But you know, this is different than him always talking to thousands of people. For him to do this is like out of the norm for him. But you think he's doing good, right?
I think he's doing wonderful. Right. Yes, that's my professional opinion.
All right.
I believe that inside of every single human being, There is ultimate potential, talent, ability. But I also believe that in order to release this potential, there has to be power, spirit power. Spirit power plus potential equals success.
He won first places in a single dances. So basically whatever competitors he had, which is I think it was 3-4 people, he beat them, he won first place.
If I can go back and just say to people, no matter what you've been through in life, you just go out there and do it. And just live life, just go out there and do it. Man, it feels great. It feels good to do something, to win at something you've never won at, you know? Especially with all those judges, you know, people you don't know, people that don't know you, you know, so they're judging you not on, you know, who you are, but judging on what you do. I think that's what living is all about.
Initially, I thought what he was going to do is get in shape and then say, okay. No. What he does is he gets in shape and then he wins a competition and then he stays in it. Then he wins some more competition. Then he stays in it. Then he keeps going and he keeps going and he keeps going. I would have told you that was impossible. It's impossible because actually, to be honest with you, Saundra is the better dancer. And so for him to be winning dance competitions, again, just expresses that anything is possible if you believe.
I can't wait to see what it's going to be like the next 20 years, you know. Maybe he might master the dance and he might become a teacher one day, a dance teacher at the same time being a preacher and being a writer or author, all that. So you can definitely see him doing different things, never stopping, continuing the legacy. He's a role model. He's somebody that somebody would want to be like, you know, and to have that in your home is definitely a plus.
He is still what I met years ago, what he is now. He is still that today. And that is, he is a good man. He's a good provider. He's a good godly man. He's a good, you're not going to find a jewel like him. You're not going to find good men that really are consistent in their work, consistent in what they do, and very sincere what he does. He believes in what he does. And because of that, I love him. I love him a lot.
Dr. Saundra and Dr. Ed, they know the pain. They know, you know, you guys get a chance to see the star walk in, but they know the young lady who is really trying to be an example. And if I can give my life the way they constantly give their lives every single day for this ministry and say that, you know, I've contributed something positive to the world, man, I'd be a great person.
Can't you see I am exceedingly abundantly blessed?
Where I am in my life right now is I want to live and feel alive every moment. I'm thankful for being alive. I want to pass that on to my children. I want to be able to wake up if the sun is shining to enjoy that sunshine, to be able to enjoy that day, to do something unique, to do something different, to touch somebody's life that I've never touched before. That's one of the most inspiring things that I get, is when I see somebody who does not necessarily know the language of religion or the language of church look at you and say, wow, that was real inspiring. Thank you so much for that. They don't know what God is, who God is, but all they know is that you encouraged them and lifted them that day. That's where I get my joy from.
You did it before. You can do it again. Make a way out of no way. On your word I've come to depend. Like you did in the Bible. I remember you said, just trust me and wait on me. I've never and I won't ever